Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 223 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined this week by the former heavyweight world title challenger. It is, of course, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers.
That wasn't too bad, Joey. You might have a future in announcing too. All right, what's up?
I don't know if that
man.
I don't know if that was some kind of terrible Michael Buffer or some kind of terrible Jimmy Lennon Jr. I don't know. That was just terrible all round. But
no, that was just a vintage, great, good sounding voice right there. Joey Coastman. That's what we wanted to use. That we just use that one. All right. That's what we're gonna say. Forget the Michael Buffer and the Jimmy Lennon. We're gonna just go with you.
Well, I'm not sure it will make the final cut, but it is what it is. Eddie, once again, thanks for joining me. For being here when Diaz goes missing 2 weeks in a row now. Last week I was with you. This week we're over the phone again. Sadly.
Yeah, well, it sucks, man. Next time we can 2 weeks in a row where I'm there. Who knows?
Maybe.
That would be nice.
Maybe next week I'll just I'll fly back over. You ready for me back that soon?
Hey, that could be nice. That would work out for everybody.
But anyway, we've been without eyes now for 2 weeks. It is what it is. Moving on to the review part of the show. Let's start here at the Winter Vegas Casino and Resort in Iowa, USA. This one was on Showtime Friday the 17th. Which I think was the day I flew back from the States. Obviously the same day Muhammad Ali was born once upon a time. But this card over here showed Jono Carroll, a very good amateur. Obviously a guy that had a very close fight actually with Michael Fox. Michael Fox, in my opinion, probably should have beaten him. But anyways, Jono Carroll got the nod that night, and he got the KO here. A first round KO actually. He's now 18-0. The Uzbek fighter marches on. He was able to KO, like I say, in one round, Adrian Estrella, who now has a record of 29-5. Jono Carroll, I think, was actually originally supposed to box a week before this. He was supposed to take on Keith Hunter, the younger brother of Michael Hunter. We shall be speaking to Keith Hunter, I believe, later on in the show. But yeah, that fight didn't end up happening. Moving out now to the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York, USA. Let's actually start with the undercard over here. Firstly, a very interesting one, actually. Jonathan Guzman. He is a guy that I think was fighting at... I'm not sure if he's moved up in weight. He might still be at super bantamweight. Anyway, he was a world champion. He was something like 21-0 with 21 KOs. He was a world champion. He went over to Japan and beat, this guy who I think may have been the champion. It may have been vacant. Can't remember. He went over to Japan. He pulled off, a brilliant win, another knockout win. And then the story was that he got paid in cash for some reason. And when he went to the airport, he got robbed in the airport for his money. And after that, he was out the ring for near on 2 years. He just completely vanished off the face of the earth. And then he returned to the ring, and I think he got beat, and then he had another fight which went to the distance for the first time ever of all his wins. And he signed with Top Rank now, I believe, and he was back on this card. It's good to see him back. Not quite sure again what's really happened after winning a world title, getting robbed, and then this inactivity, so not quite sure what's going on. But anyway, good to see him back. But it wasn't easy, he was actually down himself in the second round against Rodolfo Hernandez Montoya, and then Hernandez was down in the third round, and that was where the KO came. So another knockout win there for Guzman. Now 24-1 KO for him in round 3, like I say, against Rodolfo Montoya. Now 30-10 with a draw. Also on this bill, Christopher Diaz moved to 25-2, a unanimous unanimous decision for him over 8 rounds against Adilson dos Santos. Now 19-8. Adilson dos Santos, the Brazilian fighter. Some hardcore boxing fans might remember his name. I think he boxed Jamel Herring at one point, but he definitely boxed Kid Galahad from over here in the UK. Moving up the bill once again, Felix Verdejo picked up a win. Again, he's had some issues outside of the ring. I think he had a motorcycle crash at one point, which kept him out for a while, but he's back. He's now 26-1. A points win for him over 10 rounds against Manuel Rojas, who's now 18-4. But the main event for the WBC Continental Americas light heavyweight title and the WBO Intercontinental light heavyweight title. By the way, both belts were vacant at the at the start of the fight. Alida Alvarez picked up the belts and he picked up the KO, a 7th round KO against Michael Seals. Alvarez now 25-1. I didn't actually see this fight, to be honest, Eddie. I caught the knockout. You told me it was quite a brutal knockout. I did see the knockout, but just the fight itself. If you can give me, your short review on Saturday night or Friday night, whenever it was in New York.
Oh yeah. Well, the fight itself, me watching it, and I remember I made this comment to you, and I'm looking at a lot of these guys and a lot of these younger fighters don't really understand how to judge distance as far as like where you should be in reference to your opponent when you throw certain shots, and it causes a lot of messy tie-ups and a lot of those kind of things. Like most uneducated people, uneducated eyes watching a fight aren't going to really pick it up or really understand what I'm saying, but like I said, it just causes a lot of messy tie-ups, and even with an exciting kind of fight, you can kind of see it dull out a bit because of all the tie-ups and all of the, the arms are everywhere and shots are thrown too far and bodies are bumping in an unnecessary fashion. It's just not really the best way to see a fight, or especially two professionals at a high level like that. But eventually, it's kind of settled down a little bit. And I think even toward the middle and toward the end, when the knockout came, it was still a little bit clunky at times. But you can see both guys getting close with big shots. And one thing I realized about Seals, he was taking way too many chances with some of the shots he was throwing. He got buzzed, I think, once at the end of a round. I'm not sure if it was with a right hand or a hook. I can't remember, but it was one of those type of shots that, why were you there for it? You know what I mean? And he was just he'd had a little bit too much heart, he took a little bit too many chances with big shots. And I think once Alvarez realized it, and he was, and I don't know how much he really realized it, but besides the fact of him just leaning over, throwing that overhand right, catching him and knocking him out, I don't know how much that was planned, because he didn't really do it that many times before it. So, but it was an interesting fight, you know what I mean, to be honest. And the knockdown was obviously like, right now, that's the front runner for knockout of the year. So, it was pretty ugly as far as how he caught him, and he literally hit his head on the bottom rope. He was out cold. Well, not cold, but he was pretty stiff when he got cracked. So it was a good shot. You know what I mean? But the fight itself was a little messy. Yeah,
I mean, quite complimentary of yourself to call him young. Alida Alvarez almost 36, and
well, damn.
Michael Seals is 37.
I should have known that. He's the same age as, well, I say young guys. I'm not even just referencing these guys. I'm referencing so many different guys that I've seen recently. I mean, not even just recently. Maybe it's been, well, actually, it has been more recent, where I see them, like I said, like a lot of, like a messy tie-ups. Like you're being a professional, you got to understand how to judge your distance a little better than that. You know what I mean? And fights I've had, things like that, I mean, it's just more professional. You know what I mean? I'm looking at situations, and even some of the guys I fought, you step on their feet. It happens periodically, but for it to happen round after round, you know what I mean, punch after punch, to be, you don't generally see things like that, or you shouldn't see things like that, where there's a lot of messiness in professional sports. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it happens, but not constantly. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. For sure, but yeah, very good knockout in the end. Moving out now to the Woodhouse Park Lifestyle Centre in Wythenshawe, Manchester, Lancashire. One fight to mention over here, Dion Juma, now 13-0, a defence there of his English cruiserweight title against Sam Hyde. From what I'm told, it was a great fight. It wasn't televised, unfortunately, but everyone there said it was a brilliant fight and stuff like that. Sam Hyde, very unlucky, very, very unlucky. Hasn't had the best 12 months or so, been very unlucky, but a good win there for Dion Juma. Like I say, another name really for his resume. He needs to start pushing on again. Another guy who has had quite a bit of inactivity outside of the ring for one reason or another. And the final bill to mention, this one took place at the Liacouras Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. It was on Fox. But starting with the undercard, this one was for the interim WBA World Super-Featherweight title. Chris Colbert, 13-0 now, 14-0. It was a unanimous decision win for him over 12 rounds against Jezreel Corrales, a guy who I said on last week's show was quite inactive, but actually I think since his most recent loss prior to this one, of course, I think he'd only perhaps boxed maybe one time or maybe two times, but not topping bills or anything like that. He'd been fighting kind of lesser level guys, so I hadn't really seen much or heard much about him of recent times. But a good win there for Chris Colbert, certainly one to watch in the future. He picks up a minor piece of silverware there, the interim WBA World Super Featherweight title. Corrales was down in the 10th round, but it ended up being a unanimous decision in favour there of Colbert, so a good win for him. And moving up to the main event, Julian J. Rock Williams, now 27-2 with a draw. He was TKO'd in 5 rounds by the relatively unknown Jason Rosario, now 20-1 with a draw. He's known as the Banana. He blames eating bananas for his punch power. It was, of course, for the WBA Super, the IBF and the IBO World Super Welterweight titles. Last week, Eddie, when we previewed the fight, I think it definitely was me. I said this is, an easy touch before we get to see Williams and Hurd get it on in the rematch. I said this is pretty much an easy defense. No one's really interested. How wrong was I? It wasn't easy at all. J-Rock, gets knocked out in 5 rounds. A huge shock, a big upset, and I already want to kind of throw it in there for one of the biggest upsets we're probably going to see in 2020, even though we're only a few weeks in.
I agree. It was a big surprise. Now, I mean, if you don't know the guys that are on his resume, you'll kind of just dismiss it. But the fighting spirit and who he is, you could just tell. You know what I mean? When he was in there, the shots he took, and he just was resilient. He just wanted to come, but he just wanted it so badly. And then the cut happened with J-Rock, and it just was like he was having a hard time seeing shots coming from that side. And then one of his big defaults defensively, I think, is really defending the right uppercut. I mean, we saw it with Charlo, and then now you're seeing it with this guy, catching him with those big right uppercuts, counter right uppercuts. And it's just, sometimes obviously him, when he was lounging on the ropes, he got caught with one when he was pretty hurt already, but it's just a shot. And I think it's maybe he's a little too heavy on his front foot sometimes, being a little too aggressive. Even in a situation where you somewhat should be in retreat, he's still doing with that Philly heart. Just fighting through it, trying to make something out of nothing, and that's what happens. You get caught, and that's what And you hear him mentioning the rematch clause and hoping he can get another opportunity at it so he can get his belts back. But the way it played out is just didn't look good for him.
No, it certainly didn't. The rematch clause is an interesting factor. He'll certainly have to go back to the drawing board, as they say, and certainly tighten up a few loose ends, quite a few. He just seemed to be totally outgunned really from the get-go. The early cut really did seem to bother him. I think there was a bit of pressure on his shoulders. They mentioned that he hadn't boxed in Philly for 9 years, so it was his homecoming. But just hearing him speak in the build-up to the fight, he said, and I quite liked what he'd said, because I was worried that he might overlook this guy. People do that sometimes, but he actually said, "This guy is coming in here, to cause an upset in my backyard, just like I did to Hurd." So he his head was in the right place, it would seem. But Yeah, like I say, just a shocking upset, and
Unfortunate.
yeah, it was because I like J-Rock. He's been on the show before. One thing that I don't want to get too critical, but I said it to you already, Eddie. In the corner, after I think it was the second round, J-Rock had quite a bad round. He went back to his corner, and I think he was rocked in that round. He was cut in that round, and the one piece of advice that I heard his trainer say was, what did he say again? I think he said throw the right hand to the body, and that was it. There was nothing about. He didn't try to give him any kind of advice on, how to get out the way. He was actually saying, no, go to him, but hit him to the body. And I thought, that just didn't sit well with me.
Well, I see in a sense what he was kind of put together, but my thing in a situation like that would be crowd him, walk him down a bit, because sometimes, once you're in the lion's mouth, you miss the teeth. You know what I mean? If you're kind of in punching range, which was his biggest issue, that's where all those big shots that he's throwing are happening. You're right in his wheelhouse, right where he needs you to be, so he can throw those big shots. If you notice, he was always right within punching range, and that's a big issue. Like I said, not only that, he's heavy on that front foot too. In a lot of those exchanges, you understand what I'm saying? So if he gets inside, even if he can still sit on the back foot, still kind of be away from danger with those uppercuts, but press. Do the same thing he did with her. Get in close. Make it a little ugly. You know what I mean? Push him a little bit. The guy's strong and tough and everything. Got good punching power, but he needs space to punch. You know what I mean? Make it a little weird for him. Like, man, I really can't get some of the shots that I want to get off because he's throwing bigger, longer, wider shots. You know what I mean? If you notice, if he would have been inside a little closer, maybe he would have had a better shot, and he would have been able to throw short, choppy combinations, and he would have started to get himself together. And after the initial, it was a tough period in there when he was taking some heavy shots, and even though he was still coherent, he wasn't like hurt too bad. He could have started, he could have kept it going, but he just stayed in punching range for the guy Jason Rosario, and that's what happens.
Yeah, and one interesting thing that Rosario said in the post-fight interview, obviously through a translator, he said that was the first time he'd really had a proper training camp, which makes you think, wow, what's it going to be like when he does have a full training camp once again, and goes into this rematch, obviously with that belief that he can beat J-Rock. So very interesting for the rematch. One shot, I can't remember which shot it was, but J-Rock landed a shot. I really can't remember which shot. It must have been a right hand. Okay, so a right hand. It was pretty much his best punch of the fight, and it was a brilliant shot. He landed it right on the button, and Rosario didn't move anywhere. It was like a tickle. He just took it,
No, you know what? He showed. You know what happened? It hurt him, but it didn't hurt him to the point where his determination. I've seen it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he got caught and it stopped him. Like if you watch the replay, he kind of like turned weird a little bit. Not turned, but you know what I mean. His body had like a weird reaction to it, but he just kept coming forward. That's just determination, and I'm coming for this belt. It's going to me. I feel like I got everything I need. Every time I throw a punch, I feel it. I know it was just his night. You know what I mean? You have those nights where you're just like, I'm walking through whatever he throws. And J-Rock, I felt that. And it was just like, man, he was fighting an uphill battle on ice skates that day. You know what I mean? It happens.
Well, I will be going to the supermarket to grab a bunch of bananas because I tell you what, it looked good to me. But anyway, that is it though for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part one, the final thing to do is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former Super-Featherweight world title challenger. It is, of course, Mr. Jono Carroll. Jono, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thank you for having me. I think you forgot the King Kong in there, but...
Forgive me. So, Jono, we last spoke back in November of 2018, actually. So it's been quite a while. I think it was just before the Frenoir fight. Obviously, that win or that fight there catapulted you into the Tevin Farmer fight for the world title. I'm not sure if you look back on that fight with such fond memories, but I've got to just say, you boxed amazingly, in my opinion, that night, Jono. You really did, despite not getting the win. Just give us a word on that one before we move on.
Yeah, no problem. Do you know what? That night there was a lot of ups and downs in camp. I had a little bit of an ankle injury. My Achilles was at me, so I didn't make weight very good because I wasn't able to jog. I wasn't able to run, and yeah, I killed myself a little bit with the weight. I thought I was going to just come in heavy and I was going to blast them out. Because of the ankle, I cut the weight totally wrong. I just couldn't do it the way I normally would, you know. And I was even sparring not great because I didn't want to keep risking the injury on the ankle. And don't get me wrong, I'm not giving any excuse. That's not one bit of excuse. It's just there was things I wasn't happy with mentally going into that fight. Once I was in the fight, I was in the fight. You know what I mean? Like my arm could be falling off and like bleeding, pull it off my shoulder and just bang them with it. Like it doesn't bother me. Nothing bothers me when I'm in the fight. But leading up to the fight, a lot of things was bothering me. And I remember getting on the scales that morning and thinking, I remember getting out of a hot bath, just to try and make the weight. And sweating, I was so like drained. I remember saying to the missus, I was like, if I'm not on this weight now, I'm not making weight. Like I'm not getting back in that bath. Like I'm in bits. And I was actually lying on the floor, and she was drying me. Like that's how bad. And I felt exhausted. And anyway, went down, made the weight just about, and I was like over the moon. I was like, right, fuel up. We're gonna take this fella out. I genuinely thought I'm going to blast this fella out because that camp because I wasn't doing a lot of the running, I was doing a lot of strength work. So I was feeling really strong in sparring. I was banging a lot. So I was thinking he's there for the taking, you know. And I've watched that fight back about 5 or 6 times because it annoys me that they gave me a draw. I'm not saying anything about match round or anything, but I think they gave a draw so then I could fight Tevin and then he could fight him next, to be honest. But I watched that fight back a good few times, and there's rounds there that I clearly won, and I at least, in my opinion, won 7 or 8 of them rounds. Like, in my eyes, it's 7 or 8 or 9. But if you want to be like generous, I'd say 7 or 8. You know what I mean? So I don't know why the reason was that I drew that fight, but in my eyes, I still won that fight, regardless what the outcome was. It was annoying that I got given a draw. And the fact that I got a draw, I hate a draw. Give me a loss, I'll take a loss, but don't give me a draw because we're not evenly matched. You know what I mean? A draw is so frustrating for a fighter.
And like I say, though, I mean, that got you the shot at Tevin. And, you know, again, like, you did something in that fight where I feel like you shocked quite a few people because Tevin is a sensational fighter, very, very hard to hit. And we've never really seen anyone put the pressure on him like you did. You pushed him back and, you know, you just had tons and tons of success. And, you know, going into the later rounds, I think on my card, if I remember correctly, I had it pretty much, you know, all square. You were boxing fantastically, but you know, there was a bit of needle before that fight. Since then, you know, after the fight, you've become pretty good friends. It just goes to show once again, boxing really is the best sport in the world for me, Jono.
For sure, 100%. I agree. Listen, I think the Fremont fight gave me a bit more hunger because I got the draw. It was like, right, we're going to war now. I'm making sure I'm not cutting any corners this time. My ankle sore, I'm running on it. I didn't cut any corners then. And I always look at every single thing happens for a reason, you know. And it just made me a better fighter, I think. It made me more grounded. It made me work harder for the Tevin Farmer fight. And even over the Christmas period and stuff, I continued training. I didn't slack. I was in fantastic shape for the Farmer fight. And it just gave me a little kick in the ass, that draw did. And then I knew the game plan. I knew what I had to do in the Tevin Farmer fight. And my game plan was perfect. It was just the only thing we got to cut in the second round. We rushed the pace just a little bit. So from the rounds 1 and 2 went perfectly, exactly the way I wanted it to go. Now, I wanted to continue doing exactly what I was doing, but because we got the cut, we kind of came forward and rushed it a little bit. We said we have to win these rounds in case it gets stopped on the cut, because the cut was very deep. And I switched up the game plan and I went at him. And it was the worst thing to do because you don't come at a counter-puncher, you know, because obviously he counter-punched you and he lands his shots. And then I just thrown so many shots trying to win those rounds that I just I set the pace then really early. And once I set the pace then I couldn't reverse it. I was thinking, if I reverse it and try to settle back down like the first round or two, he's going to think I'm getting tired. And I never get tired in a fight, so I was thinking I'm not looking or showing him weakness, So I didn't just take the foot off the pedal. I just kept it down, and we just went to war, you know what I mean? It was a great fight. It was a very entertaining fight. My stock risen loads after that fight, and I thrown the third highest punches in title history at that weight division. So that's I thrown 1,250 punches or 1,200 and something punches in that fight, which is crazy, you know what I mean? That's Manny Pacquiao was at that weight, so that means I threw more punches than Manny Pacquiao did, you know what I mean, in his title fight. So yeah, it was crazy, but what an experience, and what it was enjoyable, and after you have a war like that with somebody, the only thing that's left is respect from both men, so that's when we shook hands, and he brought me for that Philly cheesesteak the next day, and from there on out I had nothing but respect for the man, and I wish him all the very best in his future, in his career.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, weren't you back out there in the States recently helping him prepare for his upcoming fight, or?
Yeah, so I literally flew into Manchester today to do this press conference. I was in Philadelphia yesterday. I haven't even slept.
Oh, man.
But I was over there the day after Christmas. I jumped on a flight Christmas night, basically, 4 o'clock in the morning. I went straight over to Philadelphia to help him out. As long as I could spend Christmas Day with my family, I was happy. But I've been over there ever since. So I've sacrificed a lot to help him out and prepare him for this fight with Jojo Diaz on the zone on the 30th of January. So it was amazing, but it was a great experience, not just the fight, but them being in his camp. It was amazing. Even we sat there and watched, actually, myself and himself, the fight, and it was amazing. It was like some bleeding Rocky and Apollo Creed shit, you know what I mean? We were sitting there and he was like, you got too greedy there, you should just land that shot and kept going. And, there was certain things that he told me that I learned a lot from, you know what I mean? Not just in the ring, but outside the ring. It was a real pleasure being there. I gained so much experience.
And I want to get your opinion on that fight, by the way. It's a big fight. It's finally, a fight that Tevin's been involved in from a United States kind of standpoint where, there's a lot of interest because they all know who Joseph Diaz is. How do you see the fight playing out? It's a good fight. Yeah, it's a very good fight, To be honest, I set the blueprint there for Jojo Diaz. He's a southpaw. Obviously, I tagged Tevin more times than anyone else has tagged him in fights. I have set the blueprint how to beat him. But Tevin is really in shape this time, I'm no sparring partner for anybody. Me or Toka Khan. We're both top quality fighters, and we made sure we worked him hard, He's definitely prepared. He sparred 14 rounds only there 2 weeks ago. 7 with myself and 7 with Toka Khan. So to be able to do that is impressive in my eyes, So I just hope he makes his weight well. He does everything correct, and do you know what? Jojo Diaz is a very strong fighter, and he's an Olympian. He's a very skilled opponent too. I think if Tevin boxes to his game plan, Tevin wins. But I think if he fights with Jojo too much, then Jojo could possibly hurt him. I never sparred Jojo Diaz, but our other sparring partner, Toka Khan, he sparred him before, and he said he can pop. He said he can bang. So it's all got to do with Tevin's head movement and setting the pace and fighting his own fight, But I do think Tevin wins the fight, but it's definitely not going to be an easy fight, for sure. It's going to be a tough fight. Yeah, absolutely.
And if Jojo hurts him, it's boxing at the end of the day, So you never know. It's a coin toss, really, but I'm going to edge slightly with Tevin.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, your next fight's been announced. It will be against Scott Quigg. It takes place March the 7th in his backyard of Manchester. What do you know / think about Scott Quigg as a fighter, Jono?
Well, he's a former world champion, so you don't get there for no reason, He's a very tough opponent. He comes forward all night long. He's strong. He's tough. He can bang. He's experienced. You can't overlook experience, So it's going to be a very interesting fight. It's going to be a good fight. I'm really, really looking forward to it. He's in his backyard as well. But when me and Tevin Farmer was over there sparring, it's nip and tuck every single round. I believe I am world. I should be probably a world champion, and at my level I will be a world champion, I'm going to be a world champion 100% in the future. So this fight, I'm looking at putting on a performance of my career and putting on the best performance possible. And like I was saying, I was sparring Tevin last week, and I was doing 7 rounds, and I have still 7 weeks to bloody go for this fight. You know what I mean? So I'll go straight back to Spain. I'll be sparring 8 rounds this week, probably 10, 12 next week or something. So I'm going to be flying in this fight, and I'm looking to make a statement. That's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to make a statement against Scott Quigg in his backyard. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a hostile crowd because Scott has a massive following here in Manchester, but I have people from Manchester texting me saying, I only live down the road from him, but I'll be there supporting you, mate. We got your back and all. It's crazy the support I have over here in Manchester, and I really feel blessed and privileged to fight here once again. I fought on shows here before when Scott fought Kiko Martinez, and I remember looking around thinking, I can't wait till this is me. And now here we are 3 years later, topping the bill. So it's my time to shine.
And you mentioned there he's got the come forward style. You've also got a come forward style. I honestly can't see anything but a real fan friendly encounter here. I feel like this has really got war written all over it. It's certainly, in my opinion, going to steal the show. I just can't see, Jono, how it can be anything but a real exciting fight. You know, sometimes you get, we see these matchups all the time between knockout ice and stuff like that, and we say, yeah, that's not going to go the distance, and sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, but in this one I can't see anything but a brilliant fight. Yeah, it's going to be a very fantastic fight for sure, but I think I have the hand speed. He's coming up to my weight division. I think I'll have the strength on him in there. I've better footwork, mate. This fight will be whatever I want this fight to be. I'm going to set the pace in this fight. If I want to go toe-to-toe with him and go for a war, I'm big enough to physically bigger man. I'll push him back and I'll go to war with him if I want. If I want to outbox him, I will. I see this fight going whatever way I want it to go. And it's going to be an amazing night for me. Trust me. Believe that, mate. And you tweeted saying that you're going to smash his head in. You can't wait to do that. He then replied saying you won't smash anything in because you're feather-fisted. I've never actually seen Scott Quigg trash talk over Twitter before. I don't know if that's actually controlling his account there, but it's brilliant. It's about time. It's about time he bit, like, because I was half thinking for a while. I was like, he's not even going to show up. The fight was supposed to be in Saudi Arabia, and he pulled out with an old injury, he was saying, and we were meant to get doctor reports. We never got doctor reports. And then I was half thinking, was he ready? Did he just feel like he needed more time? And now here we are topping the bill. So I'm actually happier it ended up turning out like this. But at the same time, I just hope the man shows up because, mate, I want world titles, and he's my way through to get a world title. He's the only man stopping me, and I'm going to destroy Scott Quigg. Mark my words. Don't think for 1 minute that Scott Quigg is going to be able to hurt me and do me in, mate. I'm going to smash his head in. And he can say what he wants with feather-fisted or whatever he was saying. It's going to be whatever fight I choose to fight. Trust me. And what is your prediction, Jono, if you have one, for March 7th? Do you know what? Scott Quigg is a very tough opponent. True. And I'm not known to knock people out. So I can only see it going the distance. But if it gets stopped in any sort of way, it'll be him going down with a body shot. Because he's an old man. I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to hurt him to the head and I'm going to hurt him to the body. He's going to get smashed up. Mark my words. Every single thing that I say that I'm going to do in a fight, I always do. You know, I very rarely say, I'm going to stop this fella, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But Scott Quigg is going to get hurt at least once or twice in this fight. And he can say what he wants about feather-fisted. Anyone who's ever been in with me knows I can bang. Anyone that can fight can bang with 8-ounce gloves. You know, 8 ounces is not very much. So you're going to feel them no matter what. But if you look at my resume, from prize fighter on, like, that prize fighter was like my 4th or 5th fight. I was in with Big and Gary Buckler and Stephen Foster, like, known opponents, you know. I didn't go that easy route and get a lot of journeyman and to get a lot of stoppages on my career. It didn't work out like that. I got brought in as a journeyman to be losing most of these fights. And I just kept winning. You know, but I wasn't knocking them out because they were all tough, seasoned professionals. But just because I haven't got a lot of knockouts on my record, don't think for 1 minute that I'm punching light. And the fact that he says that gives me even more confidence that I'm like, I hope he thinks that. Because if he thinks that, he's going to be in for a shock. And the last thing you want to be, the last thing you want on fight night is to be shocked, you know. I'm going to be covering
all routes. I'm going to be preparing for Scott Quigg in his prime when he was a world champion. That's what I'm preparing for. I'm not preparing for Scott Quigg, the old man, because I'm looking to put on an amazing performance, and I just think he's been in one or two more wars than we have. You know, I think I don't know if his heart is still in the game, to be honest.
I absolutely cannot wait for the fight. But just finally, Jono, if you've got any closing words for our listeners before we let you go, obviously it'll be the last time we speak to you before the fight. So, if you've got any closing words, take it away.
I'd like to just say thank you for everyone for supporting me. Like, I've had massive support over here with the English crowd. It's actually been a bit like overwhelming. I'm a bit shocked as well. The fact that I have just as much English, if not more English, people text me, congratulate me for the fight. It's going to be an amazing fight. I'm going to be there. So much support here from England. It's actually shocking, you know. So I just want to thank every single fan that's going to show up. Whether you're my fan or his fan, it doesn't matter. It's going to be an amazing night. And if you're not following me on Twitter, on Instagram, get on that stuff. Jono King Kong Carroll. Thank you for having me, my man. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you giving me a bit of time, Jono. It has been fantastic catching up once again. Best of luck for March 7th, and I'm sure that we'll catch up sometime after the fight.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Only a couple things to mention. Firstly, starting with this one here, the undefeated Dan Aziz will be fighting Andre Sterling. That one to take place on March 20th. It's going to be for the English light heavyweight title. It's going to be part of that golden contract bill at York Hall. That'd be a real good fight. Like I say, Sterling, you know, his loss to Craig Richards was a fantastic fight actually from last year. You know, he didn't win the fight, but he showed tremendous heart. He's got a tough chin and the rest of it. And very, very exciting fight, that one. Aziz in a real test there. Hasn't really had the tests I'd have liked to see him in, but this one will be a great fight. Also, we should mention that Anthony Sims Jr., the American, will be taking on Roma Alexis Angulo. That one's for the WBO Latino super middleweight title. That one takes place on Thursday, January 30th, in Miami. That one, of course, the Tevin Farmer and Jojo Diaz undercard. So a title fight there for Anthony Sims Jr., a guy that's loved over here in Britain. And also the final piece of news to mention, James Tennyson has signed with Matchroom. That's an interesting one because James Tennyson, obviously, you know, the notable kind of performances or fights that he's had in recent times. He boxed Martin J. Ward and he absolutely destroyed him. He knocked him out. And then, of course, he got the shot at Tevin Farmer, but then he got stopped by Tevin Farmer, which wasn't really a good look. But, James Tennyson, I think he's coming off a good win. I think he knocked out, I think it was Atif Shafiq, but he knocked him out, and now he's been signed by Eddie Hearn, so there's some big fights for him. He's big for the weight, and he can certainly punch. But that's it for the news. Moving over now to the preview part. This one takes place later today at the Hangar in Costa Mesa, California, USA. One fight to mention, Jason Quigley, 17-1, friend of the show. He's in a 10-rounder against Oscar Cortez. Oscar Cortez, not quite sure who that is actually. I'm not quite sure, not too familiar with that name. But Quigley obviously lost that fight to Turiano Johnson. He's had the one get back fight, and this is his second one. So a 10-rounder there. All the best to Jason Quigley. Not quite sure who he's training with at the minute. Moving over now to a fight that's happening tomorrow night at the Civic Center in Texas, USA. Interesting, this one. This is a guy that I've wanted to be pushed on really because I like the record. I like the stats. Junlong Zhang is the guy's name. 18-0, 18 KO wins, a Chinese southpaw heavyweight. 8 rounds of boxing here. No opponent just yet for him, but he's looking to, of course, extend that unbeaten run and that knockout run. I'd like to see him in there with some of the other top heavyweights, really. He's been a little bit inactive. I think he's getting up there in age as well. I confuse him with another Chinese heavyweight called Zilil Zhang. I think they're both southpaws. They're both like undefeated, and every fight they've been in, they've won by knockout. They could actually be the same. No, they're not the same person, but yeah, I confuse them all the time. Moving out now to Germany at the Work Your Champ Arena. Never heard of that one. That one's in Hamburg. Just to mention over here, very, very good prospect coming through, Abbas Barao. I'm not sure if he medalled in the Olympics. I think he went to the Olympics, so very good amateur. 8-0 as a professional. He's in a 10-rounder against Abraham Juarez, who's 16-4. Moving out now, though, to the Convention Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA. Friend of the show, former world champion Caleb Truax, 30-4 with 2 draws. He's in a 10-rounder against David Bassajamivui. I think it's said, definitely not said like that, but a real mouthful. 16-4 with a draw, 10 rounds of boxing there. And the final card, this one is the main card of the weekend. It's going to be shown on Showtime, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Box Nation have picked it up as well, so that'd be cool. Lorenzo Simpson, very good prospect on the undercard, 6-0. He's in a 6-rounder against Antonio Hernandez, who's 2-10 with a draw. Lorenzo Simpson, obviously, still easing into the pro game. It's going to be an easy touch for him looking at the records on paper. But yeah, Lorenzo Simpson, I've said it time and time again, definitely one to watch for the future. Jarrett Hurd is back on this card, which is weird because he's boxing here just 7 days after J-Rock. So not quite sure why they didn't just fight each other. I'm guessing that J-Rock wishes that they did now. But Jarrett Hurd, 23-1. He's in a 10-rounder against Francisco Santana, who is 25-7 with a draw. That's over 10 rounds there. Stephen Fulton, 17-0, takes on Arnold Kagai, 16-0 with a draw. That one's for the IBO World Super Bantamweight title over 12 rounds. And the main event, Danny Garcia, Philadelphia's very own, 35-2. He's in a 12-rounder against Ivan Redkach, 23-4 with a draw. Eddie, I've not been Danny Garcia's biggest fan, and I say that because, he gets called a cherry picker and stuff like that, and I'm not going to say he's a cherry picker. I always thought he was a good fighter, but fights like this, he has had quite a few of these kind of fights. He's taken on here another guy who really shouldn't be able to win more than 2 rounds against him. For me, this is another easy touch. I don't really want to call him a cherry picker, but I'm not quite sure what to call him. It's another easy touch, really, for Danny Garcia we're expecting here.
Yeah, these type of situations, I understand what they're doing, because he's had a couple rough losses, with the 2 guys that he lost to, obviously. And it kind of sucks for him a little bit to come from his. It's not like he's falling from grace, like he's not still one of the elites in the division, but he's definitely looked at now. And I hope correct me if I'm wrong, is one of the weaker of the championship level guys. You understand what I'm saying? And what I think they're trying to do, and what this situation is supposed to be, is a confidence booster. You know what I mean? To get him back on track, get him a few wins, to get him in in good spirits going into these bigger fights that they're going to start to try to go for. Because obviously, at this point in his career now, he's starting to try to get his legacy, to be more of a to move toward. Like you think of the Hall of Fame, you think of things like that as you go on in your career, especially if you've been a champion, you've knocked out some guys or beat some guys who are Hall of Famers. You kind of start thinking of those types of things. You start thinking about what you could put down and what your legacy will be when you're gone from the game. So, right now I'm looking at his situation is like get confidence boosters, get a couple of wins, inflate his record, inflate his ego a bit. And then once he gets back in there and gets really, really focused and ready to go at that next part of his career, maybe the fourth quarter, or let's say the end of the third quarter of his career, and finish strong. You know what I mean? I think that's really what this is all about. Not necessarily just cherry picking guys just so he can get inflate his record. I think it's just more for confidence and to be prepared once he gets in there with somebody that's really truly elite.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm quite a detractor of Danny Garcia's career is because, you know, back in 2011, because we forget he's been a pro a long time. He turned pro in 2007. And I'm saying that, 2007. Wow. It's crazy to think he's been a pro 13 years. But, you know, back in 2011, when you look at the run he had, he boxed the likes of Nate Campbell, straight after him, Kendall Holt, straight after him, Eric Morales, even though, of course, he was up there in age. Then he boxed Amir Khan, then the rematch with Morales, then Zab Judah, then Matisse. That's an incredible run right there. But then it just seemed to go downhill from about 2014. He boxed Mauricio Herrera. That was a fight many felt he was lucky to get the nod. Then he boxed Rod Salka. I know that people like to jump on that one and say Rod Salka's terrible. He's, of course, not as bad as what people make him out to be, but still, you know, that was a drop down in level. Then he boxed Lamont Peterson, a fight where, again, a lot of people thought he might have lost that one. And then, you know, since then he had Paulie Malignaggi, you know, an aging Paulie. He had Robert the Ghost Guerrero, then Sammy Vargas. Then he had the Furman fight, which he lost. Then he boxed an old Brandon Rios, and then of course Sean Porter, and then after that Adrian Granados. You know, that was a fight for me I just wasn't interested in. And now Ivan Redkach, I mean, I look down his resume. I mean, yeah, I know why he's got the fight. He's got the fight because he's coming off an incredible win, actually, in his last fight. He was able to KO in 6 rounds Devon Alexander. I actually forgot that had happened.
Wow.
Yeah, he KO'd Devon.
I didn't even... Oh, yeah. Wow.
Devon was down...
That is a big win.
Devon was down 3 times in the 6th round. That's never really happened. But... He was the only man to have stopped Devon Alexander, but I don't know what that is. You know, Devon Alexander is kind of hit and miss with him at this stage of his career. But Ivan Redkach, you know, not based off that, but looking at what he's done, you know, in previous years, he's lost every big fight. You know, Tevin Farmer, you know, Argenis Mendez, John Molina Jr., Dijan Zlatikanin. I suppose he's not as bad as I'm making him out to be, but he's just not on Danny Garcia's level for me. So not overly excited. Once again, it's another, as you say, confidence booster at best. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he's trying. Like I said, you need these, but if it gets to be a little too many, people are not going to like it. But the fact is, you know, he's coming off of. When was that fight he had with Sean Porter? That was the last fight.
I think he's had one win.
No, he fought Adrian Granados. Yeah, Granados. So I mean, in this, you know, after the Sean Porter fight, then having Granados, and then this one, it's another confidence booster. But it's the calm before the storm. I think it's going to be you know, he's going to probably go hard at something big in the next fight. You know, I'm pretty sure you don't want to just keep having these kind of things. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's nice, you know, for him.
I'm going to actually take back a little bit of what I've said because I've forgotten. Remember, he was supposed to fight Errol Spence, but of course Errol Spence had the crash, and that's why this fight's happening. That's why. So I forgive him a tiny bit. That is right. I forgive him a tiny bit. It's not his fault that Spence obviously.
You got to give him a little something for that because he's gonna fight Errol Spence. Yeah, that's a huge fight too. But the good thing is that fight will eventually be put together. I'm hoping if, you know, everything's good with Errol and he gets back and, you know, keeps his winning way he's going. But like I said, this is a good situation for Danny, obviously, to take this kind of fight, get paid nicely, you know what I mean, and hopefully get the win. I mean, like we just saw with Banana, you know what I mean. These dudes, you might think they're just stepping in there just to step in there, and they turn the whole thing upside down. It can happen like that. He's
not just Banana. He's the Banana. He's not. You can't just call him Banana. That's disrespect. He's the Banana. He's the best banana ever.
Yeah, definitely. He proved it that night. But in reality, though, I mean, you know, these guys, they come in to fight. Man, look, if you get an opportunity like that as somebody with the kind of resume Danny Garcia has, and you're coming out of nowhere, you're like, man, I want to turn this whole thing upside down so I can get. Then you can all of a sudden, now you're the guy. Now you're one of the names, and you know, you look at these names. I remember looking at these names on BoxRec, and even on the wall at my house, I had to print out of all the champions and the rankings, and then I was rated number 15 in the IBF at one point. I'm like, when I first got in, I was like, oh man, that just looks so good up there, you know, next to those great fighters or those other good fighters. And I'm like, man, it's just nice to be able to do it. And then now you're one of the names. Now you're one of the guys. It's a hell of a thing to be able to do that. So, and to come out of nowhere as well, you know what I mean? So, when these guys get these opportunities, man, watch out. Something crazy can happen.
Yeah, I suppose they do treat it like it's their world title fight. You're right. You're right in that respect.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not as bad as how I'm saying it will be. But, the undercard, I'm not quite sure how much of it they're going to show over here, but the undercard's decent. It's going to be good to see Jarrett Herb back. It's going to be good if they show Lorenzo Simpson on the UK telecast, but I doubt they will. But he's quite far down the bill. But anyway, that is it, though, for the preview part of the show. Of course, Eddie, it's now time to say goodbye to you. Thank you so much once again for helping out. 2 weeks in a row now. Not quite sure it will be free because I'm taking up so much of your time, I'm going to have to start paying you.
Well, you don't want to have to do that because I might be a little bit too expensive. No, you know it ain't like that. You know how I never price myself out of a good situation, so don't worry. It might even just be the best price you ever heard in your life. You never know.
I'll pay you in vegan food. Don't worry about that. But
I'll take that. Never mind. You know what? You got me for every week then. If you got some vegan food for me, send it on over. I'm ready.
Okay. Like I say, thank you so much, Eddie, for taking part in this week's show. Just before we wrap up part 2, the final thing to do is to welcome, of course, our second and final guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated top super lightweight contender, ranked number 13 in the world with a WBA. It is, of course, Mr. Keith Hunter. Keith, welcome back on the show, my man.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Very nice to be here. How's it going?
Always great when I'm speaking to you, Keith. So we last spoke back in the later part of November. It was just after your fight actually for January 10th had been announced. Obviously that fight didn't end up happening. You were out with a bit of an injury, if I'm not mistaken. How's that situation now, Keith?
Correct. I recovered. My right hand was pretty banged up a little bit off my Cameron fight. I had a hairline fracture. So my hand's pretty good, Those are the most essential tools that you have. And for a young fighter's career, it doesn't. If you skip out on a fight, don't let that be, a roadblock. Just stay focused, and pretty much that's where I'm at now.
For sure. And we also haven't spoken since obviously before your brother Michael boxed Alexander Povetkin in Saudi Arabia. It ended in a draw. We were all very upset with the judges' scorecards on the night. What did you make, though, of your brother's performance on the night? A very good effort.
He came out with a lot of steam that night. He told me he was trying to get him out of there, early on and really not have to go the distance. So, he's more of a elusive fighter. He uses angles. But when he came out there this time, I know he was in hunter mode. He wasn't playing with them. He wasn't really utilizing angles. And I think he did exceptionally well. I think he did enough to pull it off. Like you said, it was really upset with the judges. But, hey, it was an international bout. Everybody went over there, and it was a draw. It's okay because people seen, the true heart of my brother, and he still prevailed in some way, just not on record, but he still prevailed in the fans' hearts. So it was amazing to me. I'm proud of him.
Yeah, for sure. I think the real boxing fans know what the result really should have been. What do you want to see your brother do next? This is my last question on Michael. Who would you like to see him fight next, Keith?
Really, honestly, I would like him to fight Tyson Fury because he's already pretty much got the better of him in amateurs, And I forget it was a national bout. They fought, and Michael. I had never seen it, but my brother doesn't lie to me. He tells me how he pretty much really gave it to Tyson Fury. He almost beat him to a pulp and stopped him. He won in the amateurs. Michael, my brother, won against Tyson Fury. So he's really won. And then Anthony Joshua, because, again, Anthony Joshua, he lost to Ruiz, even though he got the Ruiz loss back. But my brother beat Ruiz pretty well. It was like 21-1. And I just see so many holes in Anthony Joshua now. I think my brother Styles is so compatible for him. So I want to see, Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua. Deontay Wilder too, but he's so awkward. I don't want my brother looking, it's hard to look clean and with a good awkward guy.
Yeah, I think Michael's style causes pretty much everyone in the heavyweight division problems. I hope we get to see all these thrilling fights. But your next fight has now been announced. It's another Mayweather Promotions fighter being thrown your way. If I'm not mistaken, you're 2-0 against Mayweather fighters right now. You'll be boxing Malik Hawkins on February 28th in Las Vegas. What do you know about your opponent here, Keith?
Correct. I don't really have too many experiences personally with him. I really don't have no experiences personally with him in or outside the ring. So all my information is based off of, what people tell me and what I see. And with that being said, based off of what I see, him fighting, he can fight very tall. We're both 6-footers. It's not really common to see a 6', 140 person. So he's right there. So we're both 6-footers. And his last fight, I got to see a glimpse of him fighting another 6-footer, and that was Darwin Price. And Darwin Price did really well before his leg gave out on him. I think if his leg didn't give out on him that night, Malik would have had a loss. He would have lost that first time. So I see Malik fighting really well as a tall man on the inside, but I see he has problems a little bit with his feet and his jab. So if a traditional, Tommy Hearns or a traditional good tall man keeps the jab on him and stays on his pivot and uses his feet, I think that's his biggest flaw.
Yeah, you mentioned there, obviously, you're a big guy for 140. He's a big guy. Is that a good or bad thing from your point of view? Because I'm guessing in most of your fights, you're the one punching down consistently, constantly,
For me personally, I actually prefer boxing taller, longer guys than the small ones. The small ones are a little more challenging for me. The tall guys, again, there's very few, unless you're really a student of the art, there's very few tall guys who are using, the length smartly. And I don't think Malik Hawkins is using that. He has very good pedigree and a lot of experience, and they brought him along well, but somebody has not taught him how to really utilize his jab up and down, feint, speed, and power. He's walking in, sometimes he'll use his jab when he can, but he's walking in really just trying to pressure you. The Baltimore fighters, they're very tough. I have a lot of Baltimore friends, but he's from Baltimore, and they fight with a lot of heart and steam and tenacity. I don't think he has the boxing IQ, and that's my biggest attribute. I like to move. My father was a mover. I try to keep that component, with us. And I move, and I've never been hurt, so I have a little bit of both. I can box and I can sit down as well. So I'm very confident with this one.
And what is your ideal but realistic plan for 2020, Keith? Obviously, you plan to win your fight next month. I don't really want you to look too far ahead of that. But what are you looking at now? Because you're a guy that, the way you've kind of moved up until this point, it's been very, very exciting. Actually, it's not really the traditional way. You've kind of just, you're really happy to box anyone, anywhere, and you're not afraid of taking these challenges on, and we can see that again in this fight here.
Correct. Thank you. My future goals for 2020 vision, realistically. The end of 2019, the January 10th fight that you just, recently spoke about, that fight right there was supposed to give me a mandatory title shot, a shot at the title after that one. So I chose to not take that at the end of 2020, for actually a better future, business-wise as well. And since coming into 2020, ending 2012 with the title shot, coming into 2020, realistically, I'm only about 3 fights away from really grabbing that 140 title. And, I don't only want a title at 140. I'm going to move up because I started at 47. So I'm going to quickly grab a title and see who wants to dispute that. And hopefully I can be the man at that and really move up to 147 all within 2020. I want to try to get that done. Not only unify or dispute 140 and let them know I'm that man right there, but then, almost be at the tail end of everything I have to give at 140 by 2020, the end of it at least, hopefully.
See, it is exciting times in the 140 division, and I say that because obviously, the best are fighting the best right now. We got to see Prograis and Taylor. Taylor picked up Prograis' belt, and now Taylor's signed with Top Rank. He's already straight away talking about fighting the winner of Ramirez Postal. So I think if Taylor were to fight, the winner of that fight, and then he'd be undisputed, I don't see him hanging around. I think he would move straight up to 147. Why hang around? So I can see a lot of opportunities actually opening up for all the guys ranked in all the at the top of all these organizations. So it's an exciting time to be a 140 fighter, and it'll be even more exciting probably in about 6 months' time. Right on the kind of time that you'll be ready, at the very top. So yeah, I'm sure you will have one eye on that fight in a couple of weeks' time. Ramirez against Postal in China. How do you see that one playing out? It's a tough fight there, in my opinion.
Ooh, I know. I don't know. That one I don't want to really call too much. Like you said, I would just have my eye on it. I'm gonna have my eye on that one. I don't really want to give a call and jinx anything.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, it's going to be a good fight. I mean, obviously Ramirez has struggled with good boxers at times in his career, and Postal's a tough guy, and he can box, as I'm sure you know. And just finally, Keith, any closing words at all for our listeners before we let you go? I always like to fry it over to you, give you the microphone, and let you drop some words of wisdom before I let you
go. Not too much that can fly off the head right now. Besides, I appreciate everything, and anybody who's chasing a dream, just keep pushing. Some days you don't always have good days, and some days you have worse days. But every day, if you get in that gym, you'll have a day, and that's a blessing. So. Everybody follow me, Keith Hunter, at Bounty Hunter the Third, all together. The Third is 3RD, and I'm really only on social media as far as Instagram. So catch up with me. I appreciate you. Catch up with my man BoxHard.
You need to get a Twitter account real soon, Keith. That is for sure. But listen, it always is a pleasure speaking with you, my man. Best of luck for February 28th in Vegas, and I'm sure that we'll catch up sometime after the fight.
Okay. Hope to see you there. If not, I'm definitely going to reach out to you.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 223 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. The former heavyweight world title challenger, Eddie Chambers, has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive thank you to our two guests on this week's podcast, the former super-featherweight world title challenger, Jono Carroll, and the undefeated super lightweight world contender, Keith Hunter. As always, though, the biggest thank you of all goes out to you, the listeners, for making this podcast what it is. Without you all, it would be pointless. There has been a couple of pieces of news break whilst we've been recording the show. Anthony Fowler has parted ways with his trainer, Dave Caldwell. The split was very amicable though, which is a bit of a rarity in boxing, so that was refreshing to see that. It ended on great terms. Anthony Fowler will now be trained by Shane McGuigan. So obviously the news in recent times was that McGuigan and Josh Taylor have parted ways, but he's got a new addition there to his training stable. Anthony Fowler there for Shane McGuigan. In other news, Demetrius Andrade has signed a contract extension with Matchroom Boxing USA. It's a 4-fight extension. This means he'll be with Matchroom probably for the next couple of years, I'd say. In other news, Andrew Selby has reached an agreement to box Mohamed Obadi for the vacant EBU flyweight title. A date for that fight will be announced real soon. Obadi, for those that don't know, is a Moroccan fighter based in Italy. He's actually promoted by the same Italian promoting company that work very closely with Matchroom Italy. He's got a record of 21-1. His only loss came, interestingly enough, to Christopher Rosales. Obviously, Christopher Rosales and Selby boxed in the past, and Selby once upon a time beat him, but it would appear that Selby has suffered a bit of a decline since then, and he will certainly need to be on his A game to win this fight in what I think is probably a last chance saloon really for Andrew Selby, sadly. But in other news, a friend of the show and a former world champion, Andrew Cancio, after being dumped by Golden Boy Promotions after losing his fight against Rene Alvarado, and everyone felt really sorry for him because the way Golden Boy seemed to handle the situation did seem a little bit harsh from the outside looking in. But Andrew Cancio has now signed a promotional contract with Top Rank, so it's good to see, good things happen to good people. He is one of the sport's good guys, so I'd like to wish him all the best. But that's about everything from myself now. Thank you all for listening to this week's podcast once again. Enjoy your weekends, people, and we shall see you all again next week.